What is going on YouTube? Bryce builds it all, your favorite A&P, IA, and Part 147 instructor, back with another video. And this time I want to talk about something kind of interesting. I don't know how clickbaity my thumbnail is. I certainly don't mean it to be clickbait. But that is, I hear a lot of grumbling about, don't go to this school because it's a bad school. Don't go to that school because it's a bad school. Don't go to this DME because he's a bad DME, or this, that, and the other. And I just kind of want to address that and talk about that a little bit and how I feel about it, how I feel about certain institutions. So if that interests you, stick around. I will say, as we launch into this, feel free to drop a comment down below on your thoughts. These are just my opinions, but please be respectful and try to hear what I'm saying maybe just a little bit before you go crazy. Now, obviously, if you're new to the channel, I shouldn't say if you're new to the channel. Obviously, if you've been watching the channel, you probably know what a Part 147 school is and what an A&P is. If you are not, A&P stands for Airframe and Power Plant Mechanic, not Anatomy and Physiology, but it describes a certificated mechanic that can work on U.S. registered aircraft. I teach at a Part 147 school, or a school that is approved by the FAA under FAA Part 147, I should say FAR Part 147, or 14 CFR Part 147, however you want to say it, is certified under Part 147 to teach you how to become an aircraft mechanic so that we can give you the necessary qualification to go to an O&P and test to get your A&P. A lot of words, a lot of acronyms, it doesn't matter. The point of this is to say, I hear some people, sometimes in my comments and sometimes just out there in the wild, I hear some people say, don't go to this school, they are an absolutely terrible school, or this school sucks. And I'm like, okay, well, what was your experience there? And it's always the same thing. Oh, I didn't go there, I went here. And I'm like, well, okay, well, if you didn't go there, how do you know that it's a terrible school? Oh, that's just what I heard. From who? And my point of that is to say that there's a lot of rumors sometimes, and I think there's a lot of feeling of competition, and I'm not going to call it superiority, but there's a lot of feeling of competition, like our school is in competition with another school, but really we're not. And that's not how the instructors feel. That's not how schools feel about one another. We're all trying to do the same thing. There are millions of people out there that are going to 147 schools to become aircraft mechanics, and we are just doing our best to try to teach them. So I'm not really in competition. Let's say I taught at a school, and I'll call it the Texas Aviation School of Maintenance, and there's another school called the North Texas Aviation School of Maintenance. Well, I'll sometimes hear their students say that Texas School of Aviation Maintenance is a terrible school. And I'm like, how do you know that? I've been to North Texas School of Aviation. I've toured the facilities. I've met these people at ATEC conferences. I've gone to the other schools. I know the numbers of students that they put out. They put out a good number of students that pass the test. We put out a good number of students that pass the test, and so on and so forth. So what I'm saying is, anecdotally, if you are hearing grumblings from people that this is a bad school or this is a bad school, and they're going to North Texas Aviation Academy, I wouldn't just trust them when they say Texas Aviation Academy is a bad school. Now, I get lots of comments down below from people who attended different programs and say that they had a really bad experience at this school or another school. I'm not going to call anyone out. I'm not in the business of doing that. You can find those comments on old videos where I've talked about 147 schools if you want to read them. And if that person went to that school, then you might want to heed that warning and think about it a little more. But in my opinion, this also applies to DMEs. I hear a lot of people say the same thing about DMEs. I've even had my own students do it. They've said, I wouldn't go to the DME in this city, we'll call it Dallas, because I don't like him, he sucks, he's an awful DME. And I'm thinking, you tested with a DME in Houston. How do you know that the DME in Austin isn't a great DME? And it's a rumor started somewhere in the class by someone that didn't test with this guy because they tested with another DME, and they somehow think that that DME is a bad DME. And I'll put it out there when it comes to DMEs. If you thought aviation maintenance was a small community, if you thought aircraft mechanics was a small community, DMEs are even smaller community. They all know each other, especially the ones here in Texas. They all know each other, they've met, they've talked to one another, they've retested each other's students, they worked at places together. So if you're saying that this DME up here is a bad DME because you went to the one in Houston, they know that. Or it's maybe not that they know that, but you see what I'm saying. They know that DME personally, and in the same breath of what maintenance schools are trying to do, DMEs are not there to fail you. They are there to make sure that you are a competent mechanic that will be safe moving forward into the industry. So saying that this DME is a bad DME just because you failed or just because you know someone who failed is maybe not a fair assessment. There's lots of people that fail their OMP just because it's a very difficult test and maybe you didn't study everything you needed to study. So some food for thought there. At the end of all of this, I would like to offer a solution. If you are thinking about going to a Part 147 school to get your AMP, there are other options. I've done other videos on this about going the practical experience route, going with, if you've already been in the military and you want to go to a crash course and just do a crash course and get it finished up. I've talked about all of that. But if you want to go to a 147 school, I would recommend that you go to the FAA database. I'm going to try to screen record and link to it because there's like a sheet that has all of the schools' names and student rates and pass rates. Doesn't matter. I would go to that, and then I would look at the schools in your area, how many students go through their program, how many students take the test and pass. Take into account whether or not those schools are community colleges or not. The private institutions are going to have a lot higher numbers of students that test and pass because their students had to pay a lot more money to go to classes. A lot of your community colleges, people might be here for, or there, I teach at a community college, might be here for, other reasons. They don't necessarily want to be an aircraft mechanic. They're trying to get credits toward a different degree. They're trying to get some sort of assistance. They're just trying to get more training, whatever it may be. So don't look at just the amount of students that go to a school and the amount of students that test, but look at all those things. Look at the FAA ratings. They have a rating sheet of schools and how schools are performing. Check that out. I would also highly recommend that if you're curious about going to a 147 school, tour as many of them in your area, even if you don't plan on going to them. I know for a fact there are 3 aviation maintenance schools in the San Antonio area. One is in New Braunfels, so kind of outside San Antonio a little bit, and then the other 2 are in the San Antonio area. I do teach at one of those schools. I never say which school I teach at by name because I am not an authorized representative of the school. My opinions expressed here are not opinions of the school, and ultimately I just don't ever want to get the 147 school that I teach at in hot water for something I said on a YouTube video. But there's my advice to you. Look at those. You can't really do that for a DME. I wouldn't trust something someone's saying about a DME unless they tested at that DME or several people who have tested at that DME and they all have a same opinion. But that's all I'm going to say for this. I do have some plans coming up for the channel. Once again, we have brand new merch. Hopefully you can see that. This is my favorite personal shirt because it has my Mustang that I've owned for 15 years on the back of it. The OG, if you will, the Bryce Builds It All t-shirts. But merch is out, all that good stuff. I do have some plans coming up in the future. I would like to do a giveaway. There's just been a lot going on at the house and taking over the program, so I haven't really had a chance to coordinate that. It's a lot harder than you would think to put together a giveaway. And what I want to do basically with a giveaway is pay for somebody's either either written test or pay for somebody's oral and practical. Now, I'm not going to be able to pay for an entire oral and practical yet, so more than likely I would just be able to pay for somebody's written test. But so keep an eye out for that, all that good stuff. As always, make sure you leave us a like, leave us a comment, subscribe, go build something, and be easy.